What's up, Wholesale Nation? I'm Andy here with
Undrea King.
Okay, and we've got a special guest for you today, AG Gupt from Real Acquisitions out of the Houston market. AG, thanks for coming, man.
Hey, thanks guys for having me on the show. Looking forward to shooting the breeze with you guys and talking to these folks.
So for those of you that don't know, AG owns Real Acquisitions, which is a data provider. We've joked for many years. I've known you for about 4 years since I've been in the business.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the first stop for every wholesaler in Houston. And it's, because that's where your business starts with marketing.
Right. And, for me, getting started in this business, when I first came into it, I didn't know about Real Acquisitions. So I was doing it like the hard way, right? There were certain data points that I couldn't get, like tax delinquent and things like that, and probate. I was going to the county. And at that point, I didn't know about real acquisitions. And, so when I found out about it, the thing that I really liked about it is that it was specific to our market, right? Versus just being like this nationwide type of program that didn't give me the data that I needed, right? And now that, we've kind of grown in this business and we've gone across to like multiple markets, people are kind of jealous of us, right? The data points that we have from, tax delinquent, probates, and of course, AG will be able to tell us a little bit more about it. But the other thing is the importance of having good data. I think is kind of the other part of it, right? But like Andy said, and if you're wholesaling, this is a sales and marketing business, right? And so in order to do that, you got to have some good data to start with. And what I like about your systems is that a lot of people go through and try to what they call stacking, where you get multiple let's say what do you call distresses? Yeah, multiple distresses. But your system allows people to do all of that, right? So we're very excited to have you in the studio to talk about that. But before we get started, briefly, I know you have like a long history, right, of what you've done, and you do a little bit of everything, right? So if you want to give us a brief history of what you've done in the past and kind of what you're doing now.
I appreciate that, guys. First of all, again, thanks for having me over. I've known these guys for a long time and so excited more than anything else about the phenomenal growth that the Wholesale Nation is experiencing and the value of quality education that you guys are bringing in the wholesaling business. Because like we know, that's really needed.
Right. We appreciate that, AG.
Yeah, thanks.
But Real Acquisitions, before jumping into it about me, So I actually started in the real estate business because of a mutual friend, Clay Cahoon. And if you're listening to this, Clay, a shout out to you, man.
What's up, Clay?
So I bought a piece of property in Midtown, and land, is pretty expensive there.
Right.
So I have a townhome there, and next to this townhome is a piece of land off market that nobody could give me quality data on.
Right.
So I said, I want to buy this property, and I called my agent. He's like, it's not in the market, and period.
Right.
So what should I offer? What's the market value? What's the distress on the property? When was it last time sold? If I want to make an offer, how do I do it? As a real estate novice, zero information. So that was the beginning of Real Acquisitions. And we haven't not looked back in providing quality data to serious investors like you folks.
Right.
And we build a business primarily on three things and have since 2009, which is number one, the ability to find good properties, the ability to analyze good properties, and most importantly, being able to structure wise, intelligent offers, meaning you need to know the equity and you need to know the after sale value.
Right.
More than anything else. So that's what Real Acquisitions is. Other than that, my wife and I were a little disgusted by the one number that always threw and brought bad name to my data, which was the value of a rehab. How much is this rehab? And it's just bullshit that we see most of the time, excuse my language,
right,
on what the actual rehab number is.
Right.
So with that, in 2015, we also went into construction.
Okay.
We now own a company called Terra Urbana Construction, whereby we do luxury homes. You've probably seen a few of my projects in Bel Air, West Shoe, and some of these markets. And then since 2013, we've also been buying and holding single-family assets. Since 2012, actually, we've bought almost 91 single-family homes that we've bought and kept in our name. And it's been fun riding.
Right. All right. Perfect. And
Don't
so,
let the drive for data and computer systems fool you. This guy's a salesman.
right.
He's the only person I know that's had somebody give him a house.
Right.
Literally.
Right. But definitely, some kind of way you got the data nerd into you, right?
Yeah.
So where did that come from?
Maybe it's my engineering background. I think I'm an electrical engineer, and I like to analyze things. And you know what? One unfortunate thing that I hope I won't offend anyone seeing this show is our industry, unfortunately, is run by mom and pop.
Right.
Which very rarely things like, for example, a commercial investor would think like the tools, the analytics behind making certain decisions just haven't come into a space yet.
Right.
And now, obviously, we know that we're seeing a big change in that space, right, with Wall Street money.
Right.
So I think I just like thinking like that from the beginning, maybe because of my engineering background.
Yeah.
So yeah, Real Acquisitions is a great software. I mean, it's hands down.
I appreciate
the
that.
first stop. And anybody that I meet that's new in the industry in Houston, and you guys are expanding, we'll talk about that soon.
We will.
Right. But it is the first stop. Right. So good data is more important than sales. It's more important than the letter. Everybody focuses on like what color letter, what color ink, all this stuff. But good data is way more important than what you actually send out.
Right.
And that's where it starts.
And you have to harp on that part. Right. And to kind of backtrack, and I'll come back to what we're talking about there is the one thing I like about AG is the data point of it, right? Being very analytical, which is what you need in someone who's bringing data to you, right? Because anytime I've ever came to AG and asked him a question about something, or I gave something where I was kind of vague, the first thing he said, "Where'd you get that?" Is that something that's, is it data that you have? Is it verifiable, right? He's always asking that question. And, last night I was looking on one of the social media groups, and a guy said he wasn't doing well, and he's been making phone calls, but he didn't say like exactly how many phone calls, where he's getting his leads from. It's like, we really can't help you until you get your data together, right? And that's important for any wholesaler that's out there. You got to know what's happening in your data. You got to know your KPIs, and those KPIs is going to start with where you're getting your data from, and then what are you doing after that, right? And so the first part, like we said, is where you're getting that data from. All right.
So where does the data come from Real Acquisitions?
So we have an estimate about 18 sources. And for those of you who are a little techie, the space in which we are operating in is called a data aggregator. Essentially, we collect data from various public as well as non-public sources. For example, MLS is a non-public source. Right. And we aggregate the data together. And the beauty in, I think, in what we do lies in the fact that we are able to create a conformity behind this so-called data patterns. Now, think about it like this. One of the most popular sources of data, for example, is your county clerk.
Right.
If you do not know what that is, that's the county registrar's office, where things like your title and many, many different kinds of court records are stored.
Right.
But the funny thing is, county records never have an address associated with their records.
Right.
They track it with legal descriptions.
Okay.
So how do you take a warranty deed that's been filed in county records that has absolutely no address behind it and say, when was this last time sold on the MLS? When was it rented? How much was it rented for? Who owns this property? What are the other properties that the owner owns? Is he in state? Is he out of state? Is he going through a divorce? Is he in probate? Is this an estate property?
Right.
That's the pattern. That's the 360 view, if you will, that we are able to create. And it kind of goes back to what you and I were talking about a few minutes ago, Undrea, which is the ability to, one of the things that's gaining a lot of popularity these days is the ability to stack data.
Right.
And it sounds sexy today,
right?
But we've been doing it since 2009.
Yeah. Your systems already had it, right? So when people are like stacking, it's like, well, I just click this one and this one together, and now I got, how far they're behind with their taxes, and I got probate, and I got airship. So
absolutely. Yeah. So, and again, to harp on that point, can you right now go in and from the gajillion sources out there, download or buy a list of properties that are in a pre-foreclosure?
Right.
Sure you can.
Yeah.
But today, can you do the following? This is where the power lies. And again, I'm not trying to harp on real acquisition, although I am.
Right.
But that's as a successful wholesaler or any person in real estate wanting to buy discounted, deeply discounted real estate, you have to do it.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
you will pay somebody else who's doing it.
Yep.
Which is, take for this for an example. Can I right now go to the MLS and say, show me the properties that are zoned to the top 3 most popular school districts in Houston that have been on the market for lease for more than 90 days, have a out-of-state owner, have a and by the way, the out-of-state owner has owned these properties for 10 years or more.
Okay.
So you can go from, and these are probably talking about maybe 25 properties. So you can either market to a list of 3,000 pre-foreclosures or tax lists or whatever.
Right.
Or you can spend the same amount of money on these 25 some properties and get exponentially more results by focusing on those 25 properties and touching them in multiple ways, sending them a direct mail, sending them a text message, reaching out to them on Facebook, knocking on the door if there's enough equity, And that's the power of what we like to call as hyper marketing. Combining these filters and nailing down these 25 properties versus a generic 5,000 mailers.
So you're hearing somebody that's experienced, and reading between the lines is somebody that wouldn't have caught this a few years ago. Your marketing is aligned with your goals.
Absolutely.
Like in your business and your investing business, it's absolutely aligned. And you hear it in the little intricacies that real acquisition offers. Like if you want to use it to its full capability, that's what you have to do. And if you want to succeed, that's what you have to do. So if you're new, your marketing should be aligned to what your goals are.
Very true.
And a good software will help you in that regard. So,
and the beginning point is a good coach, in my opinion.
Right.
Somebody who's able to say, okay, what are your goals?
Right.
Let me help you create those goals, or KPIs, like you were talking about.
Yeah, and that's something that we talk about in our first meetings. We've talked about that. We have our monthly meetup the first Monday of each month. And we started with that, so what are your goals for the year? Why is that your goal? To get people on the right page, for us getting started as marketing and things like that. So that's extremely important. All right.
So fast forward to today. When we met, I think you had 120 some odd properties that you had bought in various creative financing and standard financing routes, but
I've never actually crossed 100.
100? Okay.
Yeah, the total number of properties that I've bought and owned,
Uh-huh.
I've never really crossed 100. In fact, 91 is the max that I've ever held.
Well, still, just more than a couple.
Of course, he knows the number.
So, I mean, that's where you started, and you were going into this with, hey, I'm going to hang on to everything. And then as real acquisitions grew, it seemed like your model shifted a little bit, and you went into more rehabbing. What are you doing now? I know what you're doing is pretty interesting because you're one of the few in Houston doing this, and I'm excited to see every time I see on Facebook the updates and what's going on. So tell us about what you're doing now.
We do. So in real estate, I still own. So right now we own almost about 40 doors in Houston that we are maintaining self-managed. A part of the reason why we sold is I think there's so much stupid money out there in terms of buying rentals. It's a fact. And a lot of the properties that I've sold in the last 3-4 years, not all of them were slam dunks. Like, some properties that I bought in my beginning days and Sunnyside looking for appreciation, which still hasn't happened.
Right. It'll happen one day.
It'll happen one day.
Right.
So those kind of properties, but people were willing to pay certain price points. So that was a part of the trimming process. But like I said, this journey of rehabbing, if you will, started in wanting to learn the true costs of construction. And that kind of led down to a path of new builds. And a big part of the reason was I've always stumbled on many rehabbers who are completely surprised by the actual cost of rehabbing because there's so many unknowns.
Right.
Especially large rehab projects. Those cosmetic type things, different issue. But large rehabs, oh my gosh, it's a very different ballgame. And I've found over the years that new construction is relatively more predictable.
Right.
And not only that, it's in my case at least, and we are doing about 5 to 7 new builds per year, and I'll talk about that briefly. But what that allows me to do more than anything else is delegate.
Right.
As projects are happening, I don't have to show up there and saying, hey, Jose, what's happening on the drywall? Now, I said this, and these guys heard me 5 minutes ago.
I'll be there in 1 hour to take care of this problem. Yeah.
So once in a while, you get your hands dirty.
Right.
But majority of the times, it's very, very delegatable.
Right.
And believe it or not, unlike most rehabs, the loan to value ratios in new construction is significantly higher.
Right.
So I can right now go to most local commercial banks and borrow 4% money at 90-95% loan to value. Now, keep in mind, this is not hard money.
Right.
This is local commercial good money. And yes, you have to be bankable and have the background, yada, yada, yada. But it's so much easier, at least that we've found. And the last thing is the niche that I decided to focus on was luxury construction, driven again by two reasons. One, I felt if you're doing a limited volume, you are not that impacted by ups and downs in the market.
Okay.
Because somebody who can pay a couple $1 million for a home is really not that impacted if the price of oil dips by $10.
Right.
Number one. And number two is it's very difficult to do a high-end luxury in what I like to call is up and coming areas.
Right.
Like you will not catch me doing a $2 million home in Heights, for example.
Right. Really volatile market.
Well, yes. The idea is that you only touch those kind of projects, and you're forced to touch markets that are super, super stable.
Right.
In terms of,
Yeah, so you stick to Bel Air. Bel Air,
Westview, and then we're now getting into River Oaks.
I thought it was because you like to wear your suit jackets all the time. I thought it's because you were always dressed the part,
Right.
You didn't want to go down into Sunnyside
this is
wearing them
man.
shoes.
Right. Podcasts are dressed up.
Right. Nice.
This is dressed up for us. If you can't see us, we're in polos and AG's always looking smooth.
Right.
Dude, if I had muscular pecs like you guys, I would dress up
right.
like this too.
You would change your attire
I would
at
change
that
my
point.
attire.
Right. So, what do you think is your biggest struggles then with new builds?
The biggest struggle with new builds, and I mean any new luxury new builder will tell you this, is days on market. Because we kind of aim for, believe it or not, 6 months on the market.
Okay.
Once the project is built.
Right. 6 months, that's your target.
That's the target.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So if you're doing 6 projects a year, that means all 6 of those projects are going at one time.
Well, not necessarily.
Okay.
They typically stagger about 2 to 3 months behind each other.
Okay.
But at any given point, there are about 5 to 6 crews that are active. But to go back to your question, the result of days on market is holding costs.
Okay.
That's the biggest. You have 5 good paydays.
Yeah.
And 360. Oh my gosh, I'm shooting bricks today.
Right. Yeah. And I guess that happened with flippers also, I guess. But with new home builds, I guess it's a little bit different to kind of figure it out because things could change. But I guess it's the same thing with flipping, right? The main thing you're looking for is when you're buying the property, you're just trying to make sure you get it at the right price so that you kind of set the money aside for the holding costs, right? So it's kind of the same thing as a flip, but you're on a whole nother level because your price point is usually where is it usually?
Typically about $450 a square foot.
Okay, so $450 a square foot. So you're usually up there about 4,000 square foot homes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a listing price begins typically above 1.5.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So most people are afraid to jump up there. Yeah. Right. So I imagine competition probably isn't as high in the Houston, at least not in the Houston market.
For savvy, it's like this. It's people like you and I understand off market,
right?
Understand how to buy lots at a discount. Like the last one I think you walked that home in on the 45th block of Bel Air that we're doing. I bought that lot at $525. Now some people will think, oh my God, $525 is a lot of money.
Right.
But that's $200,000 below market value.
Right. I don't think it's a lot of money because we have like 2 lots over in that area right now. I think that's actually a very good price for you to buy our lots.
$525. Yeah, I mean, we might be able to sell you the 2 that we have.
But the reality is that if I go to a traditional quote unquote Bel Air builder,
right,
and say, hey, I have the ability of directly buying lots, couple hundred G's below market value, I mean, they'll shit their pants.
Right.
Yeah. That's the reality. So I think it gives me an advantage in that space where certain amount of my profits I can capture when I buy.
Right. Okay. And then because you are the data person, when you look at
that advantage.
Yeah. So when you look at the market, for high-end properties, I mean, what do you see coming in the next couple of years here for our market?
Honestly, I think there are three biggest things that will impact our market, in my humble opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Number one is we will start seeing more CMU construction.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, most builders, even in the luxury space, are doing what is called a stick construction.
Okay.
Wood frames. I think CMU will gain more and more popularity, especially in Houston.
And what is CMU?
CMU is your cement block.
Okay, gotcha.
So your periphery, at least not just your foundation periphery, what is called as the foundation perimeter, not just that, but your entire first floor. Mm-hmm. In some cases, your entire building, 2 floors, is built outside on CMU blocks.
Right.
It's like sitting in a freaking impenetrable.
It's a fortress.
It's a fortress.
Right.
So obviously led by flooding and all these changes that are happening in the market space.
So you were sweating there for a while, buying in Bel Air. There was not a house that sold for a year, a little over a year, right?
Yeah, 11 months of inventory.
11 months of inventory after Harvey. So it's an area, obviously an affluent area of Houston that was impacted by the flood. And then all of a sudden, nobody's buying in the area. So from your perspective, I'm sure that was pretty stressful.
It was. And I did have an exit strategy, which I won't share with you guys, but you know,
yes, I do.
But yes, but to go back to your question. So number one is CMU construction. Number two, I think the builders will now start exploring alternative financing.
Mm-hmm.
As more Wall Street money is coming into the space.
Right.
I think cheap construction money for non-qualified or non-bankable builders will become more and more available.
Okay.
So, for example, it was unheard of a couple of years ago to be able to get hard money at 8%.
Right.
Now, there are tons and tons of options of hard money at 8%, right? So, similarly, now builders will be able to go into alternative financing. People who are bankable obviously will have cheap rates all the time.
Right.
But quote unquote, non-bankable builders will be able to get cheaper money, non-hard money rates as well. So, and that's not a good thing, by the way.
Right.
Because what that'll do is, if you guys are from Houston, I'll just say it, Heights, not the best construction in town.
Right.
Why is that? A bunch of these new rehabbers who went to this weekend seminar and learned rehabbing over a weekend, right?
Right.
Went out and did all kinds of crazy, batshit crazy things.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Heights got a name for just stupid construction.
Right.
So I think in high-end construction, as cheap money becomes available, we will unfortunately see some non-quality products hitting our market space. So that's the second thing I see. And the third thing is I believe there will be a lot of rethinking in terms of in the building space, in the new construction space, especially the high-end building space, on the concept that I like to call as builder back offices.
Right.
So as new builders are coming in the space more and more, as cheap money is becoming more and more available, there will be consortiums, there will be clubs that are forming where all the back end that most people who do not have necessarily a business background, like how do you run a payroll, how do you do your taxes, how do you essentially establish a front end of a business, all those things will be is managed by this back office that's shared by 30-40 builders. And they simply come in and all they do is they build.
Right.
And the other aspects of running a business is managed by the third party. So these are the three biggest things that I think are coming in the pipeline for sure.
Right. And so for a wholesaler that's out there, because we run across land that are only for builders, right? So how does a wholesaler that is running across land, or maybe they want to start marketing for, maybe they hear this and say, you know what, I want to start marketing for, properties that for new builds. So how do they attract and go and find the buyers for that? Because typically it's going to be a builder versus it's usually easier. And those people are usually not at the RIA, right? You usually don't find most of the builders at a RIA or at, one of the country clubs or something like that, talking about real estate. They're usually in an office somewhere. So how does the wholesaler go out and find the buyer for that land once they have it under contract?
So for you guys, email me. I'll send you the list of.
If you're in Houston, it's AG Gupt.
The 50 builders, there are about 50 builders that are doing $1 million+ bills.
Okay.
I'll send you that. I'm serious. I'll send you that list.
I like it.
Number one. Number two, if you are relatively new in the space of wanting to build a builder list like he spoke about, I think you have a few avenues. An expensive but a reliable avenue is get yourself a membership to your local builder association.
Okay.
For instance, the one in Houston is GHBA.
Okay.
Cost you about $800 a year.
Okay.
And they freely publish the list of builders, but you have to be a member of the association.
Okay.
So if you're not a cheapsake and you don't mind spending $800, it's a very, very good list and a networking to have. Number one.
Or if marketing for lots is your niche. I mean, $800 to find a pool of buyers,
that is constantly,
Yeah, they're constantly turning money.
Right.
It's not your buyer today may not be your buyer in 3 months from now. So to have the whole list, if that's your niche, it's worth it for sure.
Right. Inexpensive, but also pretty reliable way is look at the volume being sold by your prominent agents in a market. Mm-hmm. So, for example, there are 3 agents in Bel Air that do consistently a volume of 10 million plus a year.
Okay.
Just call them. Say, hey, listen, I all the time have off-market lots.
Okay.
And I would love to sit down with you and establish a relationship. The only catch to that is you will not be directly dealing with the builders. You'll be dealing with the builders through these agents. But that's not a bad thing.
Right. Because they have the relationships.
They have the relationship. They have the ability to sell. And more importantly, in these cases where the agent is involved, the agent fee does not come out of the seller proceeds, believe it or not.
Right.
The builders are willing to pay on the buyer side. They add it on the HUD, on the closing statement. The builders are willing to pay for that cost.
Right. Okay, perfect. So there you have it. So if you're wanting to get into selling lots to builders, number 1, go join your local builders association. And number 2, go build relationships with high performing, not the new person, but high performing agents that are in that area that are pushing out a lot of properties. And if
I may add, if you want to see where that list is, again, if you're in the Texas market, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, simply log into RA, choose your neighborhood, and all you need to do is with any property, look in the last 6 to 12 months of sales volume, and right there you'll see which agent is doing most performance.
Wow. Okay. So all the information is right there. Right. So Real Acquisition sometimes it does more than just a list of properties that we're going to mail to.
That's right.
And so I know you added some new features to that also. It kind of brings me back to that. All right. Because that's something that I didn't know existed, what you just said. But you've also added things like, what do you call it? Not the hot zone, but the heat maps, right? Yeah. I know I was close with hot. Like heat maps and things like that that most list providers are not having, right? And ability to be able to make phone calls, right, mailers directly from there, so you can have a one-stop shop from that as well.
That's right.
And so you want to talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, I'll just say a couple of words about heat maps. The idea is that there are very few intelligible reports available live, if I may say so, where you can go back and make decisions on where you should buy.
Right.
And in my case, again, going back to the data nerd thing, I make decisions based on, I think most investors, savvy investors, would make decisions based on 4 things. Inventory, which gives you in essence, gives you the relationship between supply and demand.
Right.
Number 2, your volume.
Right.
Where the most transactions happening. I mean, you may have a perfect deal in the boonies.
Right.
And guess what? How many homes are getting sold there?
Right. So I had a wholesaler ask me that question, right? They were doing their marketing, right? And their logic was they pulled up the heat map and they said, well, everyone's buying this area, so it's too hard for me I can't get a property because everyone's buying in that area. And they said, so I'm looking in areas where no one's buying. Right. And they figured they would get a house under contract. But so what are your feelings about that? I think you just answered that.
You still have to sell it.
Yeah. You're probably not going to sell the property.
I mean, it's like many times, and I think again, it's the curse of this mom and pop that we have, which is you are always looking for the creative way of doing things. But we don't need to.
Right.
A market that has a high volume, even if you have a slightly discounted, forget about deep discounts, even if you have a slightly discounted product in the market space that is extremely hot, why would you not take that versus a relatively discounted or maybe even a deeply discounted product in a market space that no one really cares about?
Right.
That's my 2 cents.
Right. And you're not going to sell the property at that point.
Well, you may, because there are enough fools out there in the market right now. But if it were up to me, I'd rather be in go back to the classic saying in real estate, right? Which is Location, 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 location.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's really the main thing. And so what I think what we've noticed is that when you do get a property like that, let's say it's in Timbuktu and no one's buying in that area.
Hockley.
You go and you spend all your time and resources and everything trying to sell this property, and it becomes your smallest assignment fee ever, right? Because there's only one buyer that wanted it, and hopefully you find that one buyer and they stick with it and don't fall out. Okay, so don't do that. But
and you know what? If I may add,
Mhm.
one of the other things is, I've said this many times. I was speaking at a club a few months ago. The worst thing that can happen to a real estate investor, especially
Mhm.
a new real estate investor, is a home run, a super sexy deal where they make a lot of money
Mhm.
in the first few deals.
Right.
You know why? Because it messes them
Yeah.
up for their entire real estate career.
right,
We've talked about this a number of times over the years.
It's like, that one deal that I did where I make $70 gajillion, this
Right.
deal is not giving me that. Well, guess what, my friend?
Right.
You messed up for the rest of your life.
because they want everything to be like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You and I make money, and you know this. You guys
Right.
are seasoned pros in real estate by onesies and twosies.
Yeah.
We don't do home runs all the time. And if they come, they come. But if you start doing your deals, imagining like that, where
Right.
that one deal in Hockley that this one dude bought
Right.
for,
yeah.
50 cents on the dollar, and I was able to make whatever amount of dollars. Like, the photo of the guy that you were showing me, right?
Mhm.
$60,000 for a home that's renting at $950,
Mhm.
including the wholesaling assignment fee. Get out of here.
Right.
It's like, yeah, you're not going to be buying a lot of properties at
Yeah.
this rate, not in this
No.
market.
No.
So
So
we've actually had, we've gloated around the nation for a number of years about what we had. Anytime data providing or the data from the county clerks and whatnot comes up, it's like, no, we just log into Real Acquisitions and it's all right there. So we've had that luxury in Houston for a number of years. So what's next for Real Acquisitions? I hear we're going to be sharing you.
We are.
With,
We're
some other
launching
cities.
we're launching in Phoenix. In fact, in a few weeks, we'll be up and running in Phoenix, and then a pre-launch in Atlanta.
Mhm.
So those are the two markets. We have three of the markets that are coming up this year for Real Acquisitions. Those three markets are a little surprise. I don't want to give them a comparison advantage, but
Okay.
the two markets that are down the road just in a few months is Phoenix and Atlanta.
That's
all right.
awesome.
And for the Phoenix people out there in Atlanta, there's a lot of business going on in both of those areas.
Oh yeah.
A bunch of, I guess what you call, the people that I see out there, I don't really call them gurus because the people that I know that are in Phoenix and Atlanta, they're actually gurus. They actually are really
I like that.
doing the
Gurus.
business. Although they're teaching it, they're kind of like us. They actually have a business that they're running at the same time. It's just not about education. But there are a lot of people in those areas, but they're pumping out a lot of volume in those areas. So I think it would definitely do well in both of those markets. So looking forward to it, especially as we decide to expand. That may be
We'll just follow RA everywhere.
yeah.
they
We
go.
just follow where you guys go.
And vice versa. I'm counting on you guys to point me because you guys do nationwide traveling and you guys are part of some phenomenal masterminds.
Right.
So I appreciate the direction and the nudge that you guys give us always.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So, with that said, again, we want to thank you for joining us today. But for those that want to be able to reach you and learn more about Real Acquisitions or who AG is, so how do they contact you?
Realacquisitions.com, REALACQUISITIONS. I know. .com.
Good thing he knows how to spell
You
it.
gotta spell it sometime.
Yeah.
Or you can do the short form, which is REALAC, REAL, realacaq.co. So both of those will take you to Real Acquisitions, or just Google Real Acquisitions. Google will correct the spelling for you.
Yeah, right? Google, tell me how to spell this. I'm too lazy.
Exactly.
As long as you get close.
My son
Right.
is doing that to me right now. He's teaching me how to spell. Believe
Right.
me. At 7 years of age.
There you go.
And fixing my Italian accent, believe it or not.
Your Italian accent.
right?
That's not how you say this word, Poppy.
Well, there you have it. If you want to get some good data, check out Real Acquisitions. If you want to stop printing out things from the county and taking hours and hours trying to go through Excel sheets and figure this out on your own, this is just a one click. Saves you a lot of time so you can spend your most valuable time in front of a seller. It's where you should be spending your time versus
it's free.
running through the weeds. Right.
We have a free trial
Ah,
for
yes.
anyone who's kind of sitting on the fence. Go out there and try the system. It's completely, absolutely free to try.
Okay. Perfect. All right. And so for those that are listening to this, if you're, of course, on our podcast, go on there and of course, give us a 5-star rating or whatever rating you want to give us. And for those that are on our listening through our YouTube channel, always you can go to our podcast. There may be some things on our podcast that you're not seeing on the YouTube, and then vice versa. If you're on our podcast, there are probably going to be some things on there on our YouTube. So don't forget to check out both at the Wholesale Nation on our podcast and also on our YouTube. Also, the first Monday of each month, which is coming up April 1st, was going to be April Fool's. All right. This is not an April Fool's joke, but the first Monday this month, we're going to have, which is every month, we have our monthly meetup. And so we put a room for the wholesalers together and real estate investors. Now buyers are showing up, I guess, because wholesalers are showing up with deals. And then other people start showing up also, right? But we just go in there and we network. We always go through some topic, whether it's marketing or sales or mindset. We go through one of those 3 topics, but we do that every single month, and it's free to attend. We have free drinks, free food. So all you got to do is come out and bring an open mind, network, and learn, right? And give. That's the other part.
The best part is the networking, though.
Yeah, that is the key word, and that is work, right? And, that's something we're definitely encouraging everyone in the room to come in and network, right? So definitely thank everyone for listening, but that's a wrap, all right? Y'all come back now. You hear?
Thank you.